What's going on, guys? You got Jay Combs here. I got a special guest coming live with us today. I had to pull this guy's arm, yank the chain to go out and get him hop on here. None other than Realty Executives North Office #1 real estate agent here in Knoxville, David Mehta. What's going on, my man?
Jay, it has been so long. We just were catching up a few minutes before we started, and man, it's been wild. Think of the time that's just elapsed since we got into this business. All the stuff that's gone on. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
does your head spin sometimes when you think about it?
My head spins every day.
You
Every
can't,
minute of
you
every
can't, you can't not when you think about how far you've come. So,
Vice versa, man. Vice versa.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so for those of you guys that don't know, me and David met at a previous job. We both worked at Cellular Sales Verizon, and I just remember me and David worked a few shifts as I was making a transition out. He was still working there, and I just started real estate, and we had just talked about dreams and aspirations, and scanning inventory one day, and it was like, all right, I think my career here at Seesaw is
Right.
done.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you hopping on here, man. So you've seen a few of these videos. We talk about how to elevate, somebody that's in the business, and we run a team. And so people hear how we operate as a team, but you crush it as an individual, independent agent running your own business at a very, very profitable deal. And so, part of what I'm doing, the reason I'm doing some of these videos is I want to help anybody, whether they're independent, whether they're on a team, whether they're starting a team, whatever. And you've actually worked residential and commercial, correct?
That is correct. Correct. I stayed with Oliver Smith for about 6 months. Learned a lot there. I still play predominantly in the residential field. I'll still do some commercial stuff when it comes to me,
Yeah.
but I would say I'm probably 90%, on the residential side. And I love it. It's just fun, man. It's scalable. You can control your inventory better. The relationships you build, we can talk about that too, but that to me is more important than even the deals, because those are just birthed out of the relationships you're building, right?
Of course, man. I mean, there would be no deals if there wasn't a relationship that was built before the deal. You know what I mean?
And then it's how many opportunities can come from that. So,
Well, and that's, we'll address that today. I think that you've done a really, really good job building your business really profitably, right? So, someone could go out and build a team. We'll do 100 to 130 million this year, but that doesn't mean anything if we're not profitable, right?
that's
It doesn't matter at the end of the day. You have the greatest organization in the world, but if it comes time that you can't pay your bills, what are you doing it for? So, but you've built a phenomenal business, and you've done it profitably, and you've done it the right way to where you're building that book of business long term too, which I tell people, like, guys, this is a slow burn. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so I think that both of us, we actually did kind of a hybrid. We sprinted, right? We sprinted out of the gate and realized, after we jumped out of the plane, like, holy shit, we probably need a parachute. And then so we realized, okay, this is going to be a long-term marathon deal. So, I know that I've learned from a lot of lessons. I'm sure that you have as well. So, I thought it was really important to bring someone of your caliber on, on our channel, so that you could speak some knowledge into some people, help other agents that, a team's not for everybody, quite frankly. Most people, it helps them tremendously. It gives them that support, but there are individuals that are very, very driven like you, that have the ability to go out and do it on their own. So for those that don't know, the freaking stud, David Mehta, walk me through, how long have you been in real estate, David?
Well, first, I want to tell you congratulations real quick to you and your wife, Erica, and your baby on the way out. I want to get that out of the way. I'm proud of you for many things, but that's, one of the most important. So congrats. So how did I get started in real estate? Was that the question?
Well, go ahead. How'd you get into the business?
Well, I was going to say, it's funny. It's a funny story, because you were at Bearden. This is at the Verizon store, and you were screwing around with your license. And you and I talked, and you said, David, I'm going to get my license. And I actually said to you, you may not remember this, I said, there's too many agents. It's not a good idea. It's just an inflated market. And you just didn't even let it affect you. And the more I looked into it, the more I looked into it, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter how many agents. What matters is, can you get the business? And, so that's really one of the first entry points, Jay, was looking at what you were doing with that, thinking, there's too many agents. When I had to go look at it and decided, well, you know what? That doesn't matter, because only 10 to 20% do any of the business anyway. They're taking 80 to 90% of the market share. So, that, and then a few other people close to me had mentioned, hey, you would be good at this. You need to look into it. And I kept pushing it off because I wanted to build my own business. Okay. I wanted to do the Amazon thing. And I did that. I was always entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
We were flipping phones for years, used phones, and did Amazon FBA, did Amazon eBooks, did very well. But I realized that I don't want to compete with the world. I want to compete with my local market. It's a lot easier to compete with your local market where you have boots on the ground and you know what your market is, versus competing with somebody in Indochina.
Yeah.
They're going to take your head off, even if you're successful for a year or two, unless you've built yourself up to some kind of machine. It's just better to be local. So real estate fit that mold. And then it became, how do I curate that into my lifestyle so I can make this business work for me and my family? So
yeah, so let's talk about that. So you've got 2 small children?
Well, 3. My 2 small ones, and Adelaide is 11 now. So
okay, so 3 children, right? That's
3 girls.
How time flies.
Yeah.
So 3 kids, and how do you balance that? This is a complete segue off to another topic, but let's talk about that, because I am about to be a brand new dad, right? And that is that goes through my mind every single day. Like, how am I going to freaking juggle this with being a dad, and being a business owner, and doing both of them exceptionally well? How have you gone out and prioritize your time to where you can, run a significant business, but also be a great father at the same time?
Well, I appreciate that. I like to think I'm a great father. What I do is I try to involve them. So instead of trying to compartmentalize time and manage time, I navigate time. I'm navigating time. So I want them to be with me where they can be. I've taken Adelaide on showings, closings. The little ones can tag along in certain things too. And if I'm on calls, I try to get them involved in some way. And COVID taught a lot of people how to do that. A lot of people were working from home. Well, I was doing that for years, so it was nothing new. It was already built into the cake, right? So what I try to do, though, the best advice I could give you is navigate time instead of try to control it, and bring people into your world so that you can share and they're benefiting. Your kids see you work a business, that's going to have an impact. When they get older, it's a huge influence. So that would be my number one thing, is navigate time with your family in your business instead of trying to, push things into certain areas that may not fit.
Yeah, man. So that's funny that you said that, dude. That is, I was literally just sitting with my bookkeeper, like literally 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, talking about being frugal and scenarios like that. He's in his early 50s, and my dad's in his mid 50s. And so we're having that conversation. I said, listen, I appreciate your frugality, right? And I said, my generation doesn't, we're not nearly as frugal as the generation before. We're more of an abundance, just make more money, it'll all come,
Yeah.
And that's definitely how I think. I'm like, listen, if you have problems, like inflation's coming, so go make more. But I definitely appreciate that. But I told him a story. I said, I remember watching my dad work, right? I'd go to a job site, I'd learn what he's doing. And then I remember on the weekends, or on Fridays, this is back in the 90s, right? Mid 90s. You actually asked if I was alive in 1995. But in the 90s, I remember watching my dad keep his books, doing checks and balances, P&Ls, making sure that, that he had all his ducks in a row to run a business, because most businesses fail within that first year, right? I think, and I was actually talking to him, and he said some statistic of the tune of like almost 80% of all businesses fail within 24 months. Well, my dad's been in business for almost 3 decades. So, you have to put certain parameters in place to ensure that you have those fail safes. And it really reminded me of that. And I appreciate that. And you were talking about how, being a good father, you're doing it with them to instill that. They appreciate that. Man, that was, 25, 26 years ago, watching them do those things. It still to this day have an impact on me. I'm
But
not.
it paid off because look at where you're at. I mean, kids, they watch what you do. It doesn't matter what you say, and they just absorb and they follow what you do, and it becomes ingrained. It's like an imprint. If you could tell them, hey, work hard, but if they see their dad on the couch or, wasting time, not really doing anything, that's the other side of it that you don't see, right? So like you have to be the example, and you hope that they'll follow that, whatever their interests are. It may not be real estate, but apply that sort of attitude to their life.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I'm gonna end up raising engineers. I can tell you that. Between me and my wife, I think they're going to be in some type of sales atmosphere. But no, absolutely. You mean you nailed that. So let's segment on so that people can kind of understand. So right now, you've got an awesome billboard up on I-40, and last year you were the #1 agent at your office at Realty Executives. And Realty Executives has a huge presence here in Knoxville. What did you do production wise to be able to be the #1 agent in that office?
Okay, so I still do the bare basics, right? So The One Thing by Gary Keller, still a great book, influenced me tremendously. I still do that. I still will do my calls in the morning. That's the most important thing. And it may not be cold calls like it used to be, but I'm calling on past clients. I'm calling on people that I have good rapport relationships with that are looking for deals. So I'm probably on the phone all the time. Even this is essentially a phone call, right? Like constantly on the phones. And I consider that to be the #1 thing that I do is I don't disconnect. What comes from that though? It's the relationships like we talked about at the beginning. I'm no longer hunting down one deal to show up to the appointment. There's like 20 agents, right? That's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to do that, but now it's more about building relationships. So to answer your question, 2020 was going to be the worst year ever, or it was going to be the best year ever. And nobody really knew because of COVID. And it ended up being my best year ever. But I put that back on building those relationships through the phone and never disconnecting, always trying to reach out to your sphere and build new relationships. That is the backbone of my business. There's no secret. I have a very low expenditure. I think I told you my fixed cost per month is less than $700.
Yeah.
So I'm frugal, but I take a lot of that liquidity and push it into assets that are appreciating at such a level that, that's what excites me is how fast can I grow.
Let me pause you on that because, man, I love this. I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but you just segmented and you swerved right into my lane. So a week ago, this Thursday, I hosted an event on how to maximize your lead generation, and in that, I talked to these agents. I said, listen, if you do not have a book of business, if you do not have a personal sphere database of a large database of clients that's going to continue to do business with you, you have to go out and maximize your online lead, your online lead generation. You do not pay a lot of money for online leads, correct?
Well, no, let me clarify. What I do is to be specific, I'll use RedX. It's 2 cents per lead. And I'll hit an email addresses. So I use online marketing, but I don't buy the lead that's already part of Zillow, we'll say. I'll call a neighborhood, collect 10 emails, build rapport with those people. I don't have to get 100 homes in the neighborhood, but if I can get 10 people that know, like, and trust me, they've given me their email, which is gold, then I'm putting them on a weekly email that I make. I'll actually send it to you. It's going out today. I'll give you an example of it. But and that just, you're staying in front of them. And so when they're ready to do something, they reach back out because they see you're working hard. Your emails just sold, just listed. It's not a drip campaign. And that's why I stay. If they're ready to do something, then I have a potential list of 20 to 30 people that are looking to do something. And that's something I'm wearing out every day. But that's the closest I go to online. I don't buy leads. I'm going to have to call anyway. So why not just get it out of the way?
Let me pause you on that, because I'm going to bring this full circle. So I was telling them, ultimately what you're so there's multiple ways to run a successful business, right? And so I generally speak to the masses. You, David, are, the anomaly, right? But you're a very dedicated hard worker. And there's one thing that there's no substitute of hard work, right? And so both of us built our careers on hard work. But I was talking to everybody that if you don't have that book of business, right, which you didn't to start with, so you had to build that, and you did it through brute force, pounding the phones. And I tell my agents, is like, there's nothing that can make you more money in this business or any business in 2021 than picking up the phone and calling someone. There's nothing that can pay more dividends. And so I said, either you have to have a big database of past clients and everything like that. I didn't touch on this, or you've got to work your freaking ass off, right? That's what we've had to do. Or you've got to maximize online lead generation. So you actually added a third category that I didn't even bring in there. But I said, if you don't have that book of business, you've got to maximize that, because in 2021, 2020, right, everyone was at home. And what happened? They saw things on the billboards, they heard it on the radio, they saw it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these different places are advertising to your clients, right? Yep. Even both of our clients are getting advertised by other real estate agents. And so if you don't stay on top of your clients, like you said, build that incredible rapport, you're going to have to find an alternative. Or if you've got a 200, 300 person database of past clients, you'll be able to work those. But eventually, one day that'll dry up. And so what you just solidified the work aspect of it is you're constantly actively engaging in conversations, building relationships, rapport with potential buyers and sellers. And that's one thing that I think people get in this business and they think, I'm going to create my own schedule. I've got freedom. I've got flexibility. What's your thoughts on I've got freedom, flexibility, and I get to work my own hours? What's your thoughts on that?
You have to pay for it. There's a price to be paid, and most people don't want to pay the price. You can have all of those things, but the price to be paid is sacrificing upfront a couple of years of just grit and hard work. And, one thing I've done, Jay, I help a lot of agents behind the scenes. They'll call me for advice. They're with brokerages that maybe aren't with mine. But I've sent a lot of people your way because I appreciate what you do, where you've got a system for new agents that you're like, look, you might feel like our split's a little different or whatever the case is, but we're providing value. You're not having to go out and break your back. And most agents, I will tell you, you talked about businesses, 80% fail. I know 95% of real estate agents never make it. They might have their license, but that doesn't make you a success. Most just hold a license and they failed out of the business. They don't even know it yet. And it's because they don't have structure. It's true. It's true.
Amen, brother.
Like nobody's tapped them on the shoulder and said, look, you've done one deal. It's been 2 years. You're not in this business.
You're not a real estate agent. You're just you're a consultant at best. Man, listen, if there's a real estate Bible, that's definitely in the first chapter right there, man. Preaching some really the truth, and people really have to realize that a lot of people that I know, people will tell me, oh, I got in this business for flexibility. I got in this business. I'm like, yes, you can manipulate, as you called it, you can navigate time, right? So me, for instance, I like to take from 12 to 2 or 3 off, and I do my personal errands. I'll run to the bank. I'll go work out. I'll do whatever I have to do for my personal life, right? But I also am picking up those hours typically from 5 to 10 o'clock. I'm back at it. I mean, my wife hates it, but it's that same thing. It's that sacrifice. And people think that they can go out and make a, significant income, a 6-figure income, and work 20 hours. I'm like, dude, whatever book that you read.
Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Not at all. It's interesting you say it because I have done something that people can't believe. And there are some, maybe, in the 5 years I've been in this business, I will tell you, maybe less than 10 times I've worked a weekend. Now that sounds lazy to most people. They're like, well, if you're a real estate agent, you're going to work the weekends. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm working my ass off Monday to Friday from the time the sun comes up until it goes down. And I will navigate that time. Even if I have to split a deal, I'm not going to sacrifice time with my kids if I don't have to. And that goes back to creating that schedule. There are sacrifices, but you can't do it if you don't put in the work. It's a lot of work. So it's interesting that you have the 12 to 3 or whatever that block of time is. For me, it's like morning until about 5 or 6, and then I'm done. And I'm with the girls more full time, right? But you can split it up however you want, but you have to be making those sacrifices up front before you ever get to that level, you know?
Yeah. So I'm not a night owl, right? Like I like to be in bed. 11's late for me because I like to wake up early, right? I've got a buddy of mine who's a deca millionaire. The guy's made over $2 million a month at his peak. That's a lot of coin. But anyways,
a lot of cash.
That guy doesn't wake up until 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. But you know what he's doing? He's working till 2 to 3 every night. And so the thing that I think that people need to realize, and you've nailed this, I don't work the weekends either, right? And I tell people that I'm like, listen, so I've been in business. We've both probably been in business about 5 years. I was like, I tell them I put 10 years of time and compress that into 5 years. I've earned my stripes to not have to work the weekends as well. But, and I still, I mean, are there occasions, of course, are there, am I going to go out and send contracts or do whatever it takes, to get deals done? But I'm not doing the full daily, showing of homes or going to listing appointments on a Saturday, Sunday, because I've earned that, right? And that's my time to spend it with my wife. Same thing. You want to spend it with the kids. And that's the freedom and flexibility that an agent can get. But they have to understand you've got to make it up somewhere, right? Whether you're doing that at 6 a.m. or, 12 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to be successful, you're going to have that grit to go out and do it. And I tell people, I've got a friend of mine, her name's Tina Call. She's in North Carolina, but she was like, listen, everyone has this opportunity in this real estate to become a millionaire, right? But there's no millionaire, there's none, right? And that's in our world. They may be in some other world. They may be in this book that you read that's not real. That's called a fiction. She talked about, she was like, you have to put in the work. You got to put in the hours. You have to treat this like a 9 to 5 or whatever that looks like for you. And you've got to do it 100%, not half-ass. And I resonated with that a lot. So walk me through, because I know you've only got about 10 more minutes. What are you doing, David? Or let me ask you this. What did you finish last year out in sales for the audience?
Well, so the way the Realty Executives calculate stuff is different, right? So I closed about 490 in sales by the end of December 31st. And I still finished number one, but only about 360 was calculated or tabulated because you have to close out paperwork. You run a brokerage. Sure. So right under 500,000 last year in total GCI or whatever you want to call it. Of course, some of that money came over to this year. So I'm not counting that for this year's numbers because that's. So this year, like right now, I've got about 13 deals pending. Those will all close before the end of July. That alone is about 5 million, right? With that included, and you've got, another 4 or 5 months left. CI this year would be similar. I would say between 13 or 15. A lot of what I do though is off-market deals, which I know that you're familiar with now too. And well, what happens is that you stop counting units and you start looking at sides. If you're on both sides of a deal, it's a little bit different with how it's being calculated, right? You're just looking at what's the end number. And so yeah, I would say this year probably would track similar to last year. Getting to the
500K in GCI, which is freaking
right underneath it. I mean, I could say that, but it was right underneath 500K.
All right. So listen, if you made 490,000, I don't think anyone on this podcast is going to be, oh, he didn't make $500,000. So
well, that's what I say. I mean, getting to the point, like, let's say you had a goal of a number. We've talked about this. Goals are limitations, because you could set a goal and get married to that number, and then it screws up your trajectory. You're focused on that number. Maybe it's too small. Maybe the number is too small. Maybe you could have done more. You've got to shoot yourself higher. And, I'm looking less at the year, and I'm looking more at like decade, right? I'm looking at what's going on in 2 years, 5 and 10. And I'm looking at my net worth. Like, millionaire is not even a big deal. I'm sure maybe it is for some people watching this, but I'm sure they would agree from hearing from you or me, is that seemed like a big number at one point, but now you want to be a multi, and you want to keep growing your net worth, and you don't want to get lost, like you said, in having numbers that look impressive, but then there's no net worth. You've got to be able to grow on both sides and be smart with it, because it compounds, right? It'll continue to snowball
significantly. So that actually leads me to my second segue. And we've got about 5 more minutes here, so I want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's. So you nailed that on the head. So I hate that real estate is linear, meaning one for one. You were talking about building a relationship, which could be multiple. So that's one way of taking away from the linear one for one aspect, one sale, one commission, right? Because we want residual cash flow. We want to be able to wake up in the morning knowing ding, 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 I just got some cash hitting the account. And I think that's everyone's goal and aspiration, but no one really has that playbook on how to do that. We talked about how to build ancillary businesses with your business as well. In our last meeting on Tuesday, we're actually having a big event. We were going to do it at the end of July. We moved it to the 2nd or 3rd of August. 2nd or 3rd of August, and bringing in 2 guest speakers for that one. But you were talking about this, and me and you had a private conversation on this, but making that dollar, making that income is great, right? I mean, you've got some cash to make, but if you're not going out and multiplying that and having that compounding effect, you're always going to be living in the rat race. And so what does that look like for you? What are some things that David Mehta in the next decade is looking to either build another business or putting his money to work? What would you give advice to an agent that's doing pretty well, but they're still doing that day to day? How can they go out and get out of that rat race and build an additional revenue stream or make their money grow?
I think it's a 2-part question. Number one, I love what I do. I used to crave passive income until I realized that I could grow the capital, the liquid capital, to get the 20% investment, that I could grow it faster if I was just paying attention and not being worried about the passive income. So I love passive income, but I think there's a time in your life for it. I think that, you can leverage debt and things like that. Right now, that's not in my playbook, although I think it's a great structure. That's not part of my playbook. My playbook is to grow my net worth to a substantial amount, and then push that into large real estate assets, 100 doors, right? Instead of doing the deals that would maybe be easier to start with, but it creates too much of a headache and red tape. So that's my playbook. Everybody's different. There is no right or wrong way. So I would say for anybody starting out, focus on your net worth. That's net worth. That means, minus your debt, how much are you worth and how are you growing that? Because inflation is killing people. We were joking. I said I invest a lot in Bitcoin. It's like, well, yeah, but next week you've lost half your net worth. But you got to look at stuff like, okay, are you in it for trading, or are you in it for long-term positions and where things are moving? If you're competing for cash with passive income, that's getting diluted. The CPI they base rents off of, right? If I'm competing for cash flow, that's getting diluted because they're printing so much money. I want to temporarily pull away from that and grow my net worth and then get back in. That's my play, but everybody's different. For agents that are looking for freedom, I mean, you're similar. I always want to work. Yeah, I may take weekends off to be with my kids, but I'm still available and I love what I do. I don't want to ever stop. I want to eventually be a global brand, my name to be global. You can use mediums like, YouTube, Instagram, etc. to do that. I want to dominate locally and be global. And I think that would be the best playbook, is to dominate your local market, but become a global name. And I think that would be the smartest thing, because people get to know you, like you, trust you, and you can provide value. There's no limit to ancillary business opportunities that come from that. You're a great example. Look at all the connections you've made all over the country just by building relationships and putting yourself out there in a positive way. I believe that there's no shortage of opportunities, as long as you can, think big and not limit yourself with what I call goals, right? Goals are limitations. I really believe that. I think you have to have a big vision and move yourself in that direction. So
yeah, for sure, man. That's great, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So much value dropped today. I'm glad I've got this one on recording, because this would be something I actually personally play back, because I've gotten a lot of good feedback from you there. Last question, and we'll wrap things up, right? So we talk about this a lot, about, where we came from, right? And where we are today. You told me some story the other day about how when I first got in the business, I wanted to put this, put certain brokerages out of business, and I totally forgot about that.
yes, I've got to tell that story. Do we have time to do that? I want to tell that story. I want to do it justice. So
yeah, sure.
When we were working Harriman, together, and this is a great story. I definitely want to take my time with this. So we would carpool, Jay, and you had just gotten your license. I was in the process of getting mine. And this is a true story. Jay is very gregarious. Most people would agree. He's very just great personality. But this particular day, you were very quiet. And we were driving in to work, and you were just quiet. I was like, this guy's like, he used to be so cool. He's like, so we won't even talk. Like, what is going on with this dude? Introvert as hell. I was like, it didn't make sense. And, you were going through some stuff. An agent had tried to kneecap you. You didn't do anything really wrong, but it happens. You've talked about it publicly before.
Sure.
And it was on your mind. And we talked about it. I was like, look, the future is bigger than whatever small blip this is. And you already knew that. You didn't need me to tell you that.
Sure.
But in the course of that, I know that we had a conversation. You're like, I'm going to put this guy out of business. This is an older guy. I'm not going to say his name. Should we say? No, we don't want to do that. But you said, I'm going to take this guy. He's an older gentleman, run him out of business. I'm going to take his spot. I'm going to be bigger than he ever was. And I love that, by the way. That's how I think about things. And I said, I like this. And you were just driven, but you did do that. I won't say who it was, but you're bigger than that person ever was. And you're still so young, so much ahead of you. And it's not about that you want to put somebody out of business. That's just a masculine trait, if you want to call it. You're just competitive. But it's that spirit of wanting to conquer that I think has carried you so far. And that was just a great story. I think you've forgotten about that, if I'm not mistaken.
I did forget about it. Oh, hold on. We just dropped. Can you hear me now?
Did it break up?
Yeah. We're back. No, I did. You reminded me of that story the other day, and God, it just made me laugh. I think that was
that was like the best part of it. Probably didn't.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, it made me laugh. I told my wife that story, and she laughed too. I mean, she got a big chuckle out of it. I mean, really, what it was is that person devalued me when I first got into business, and that's why I had that interior motivation to just prove a point. And there was that Darwin's theory, survival of the fittest, when I first started. Things have changed now, and to be quite honest, I wouldn't be anywhere nearly where I'm at today if I didn't adapt and change. Because I was very self-centric back then, and now it's completely changed. I'm not actively selling real estate. I'm helping other people grow and accomplish their goals. And that was the hardest transition for me, was leaving the active production, which that's what I enjoyed, and transitioning into helping and mentoring other people. And so my goals have changed, my desires have changed. If I never win an award or accolade personally for the rest of my life, I'm perfectly fine. The one award and accolade that I would want is that I helped more people accomplish what they wanted to achieve, and have that's what gets me fired up and motivated. But Lee's last question, we are a minute over here, but what would you go back, right, knowing yourself, but also other agents that are getting in the business, or agents that are already established that aren't doing what they want to do? what is one pro tip that you can give them that could have a huge impact on their business?
Okay. These are agents that aren't having the production that they were hoping for.
Either new agents or someone that is already in the business, but they're not crushing it as well as they wanted to.
I would say this is very, crude, but I would get on the phones. I mean, look, sales cures all.
Yes.
If you're discouraged, get on the phones. I mean, I will tell you the truth. Every time I get on the phones, I'm not looking for a deal, by the way. I'm busy enough. I'm looking to build a relationship with you. And I want you to think about me when you buy or sell real estate. I don't care about if we're doing a deal today. That is not even a thought in my head. I just want to build a relationship, and I want you to trust me, like me, and think of me when you're ready. And if I can do that with one person each day at a high level, that's success. And for agents to really understand that, that's something they have to come to on their own, but you can preach it. And that would be get on the phones, build relationships with property owners. I want to be specific. First-time home buyers, absolutely, but it's a different world. If you can just talk to property owners, they're more sophisticated. That process is smoother. There's something to sell. There's something to buy. Usually you can accomplish more and help them more too. That's
awesome, man. Well, dude, that's huge value. Honestly, I'm going to go and bring that up at my sales meeting next week, because I do think that it's all about the relationships built, and the fortune is in the follow-up. And from what I've heard is you built your entire book of business, which you said somewhere is around 15 million this year. That's a lot of homes sold just by being resource and adding value to these people's lives, which is huge, man. David, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. It's good tuning in with you, my man. We've got to catch up soon. Let's make this one happen.
My honor, and again, congrats again on the little one on the way, to you and your beautiful wife, Erica. Just all the best to you both, and I'm sure we'll catch up and maybe grab a bite to eat sometime soon. Okay.
Yeah, man. Hey, and you've got to deal with one of my up and comers too, right?
Yeah, Matt, we're doing one over there in beautiful New Tazewell. So
yeah, big house,
big house, and great people too on both sides of that one. So
that's awesome, man. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for tuning in again. David, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jay. Take care.